Hi, you might recall that our discussions of the last two sutras did not include any examples. Well, we will make up for that today in the discussion of the next sutra, which is 835 Samahasuti. Samahasuti. However, before we get to Samahasuti, we have to have the last two sutras pretty clearly in mind. So I will briefly uh, review them, the high points, and if you haven't taken a look at the videos for them, um, that would be a good idea probably as well. So for the um, quick refresher course in 832, 136 in Siddhanta Comedy, and 834, 137 in Siddhanta Comedy, Atranunasika Purvasya Tuva, and Anunasikat Paronuswaraha. Anunasikat Paronuswaraha. So, 832. Atranunasakaha Purvasya Tuva. Atranunasaka Purvasya Tuva. Those two slight variations given to us courtesy of Kuppo Akapaucha, which we will come to eventually. Now, the sutra starts with Atra, Anunasakaha Purvasya Tuva. Atra here means in the context of discussing Ru. So we are back to our old friend Ru. And the meaning of the sutras, filled in a bit, is that in the context of enjoining Ru, Anunasaka will optionally come in place of the one which precedes Ru, in place of the one which precedes Ru. Now, in this case and in the next one, coming in the place of is not completely correct. In other words, if the vowel preceding Ru, if the syllable preceding Ru, for instance, is Sa, then the would be replaced by Anunasika So I'll just repeat the definition again. In the context of enjoining Ru, Anunasika will optionally come in place of the one which precedes Ru. The next one is 834, 137 Siddhanta Comedy. Anunasikat paronuswaraha. Anunasikat paronuswaraha. Now, fun thing about this is the form of Anunasikat is taken in the sense of when Anunasika is omitted, when there is not Anunasika, because the preceding sutra outlines an optional replacement of the vowel by Anunasaka. This sutra addresses the contingency that the Anunasaka does not come in that place. So Anunasikat paronuswaraha. So in the case that Anunasaka is omitted in the setting just discussed, Anuswara will come to the one which precedes Ru. So that is to say that the syllable before Ru will either have an Anunasaka vowel substitute or Anuswara, which is also seen as an augment. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we have an example in the new sutra 835 Samahasuti, Samahasuti. And this joins the club of things that look small, but in some ways turn out to be very big. So Samahasuti, the Anuvritti, very modest, is Ru. So the sutra is Samahasthane by Shashtisthana Yoga, obviously. Samahas Ekavachana Shashti. Samahasthane Ru Suti Pare. Suti is Saptami Pare with Tasminiti Nirdishte Purvasya. Tasminiti Nirdishte Purvasya. If that doesn't ring a bell, I would say look it up. So the meaning of this sutra is when the augment sut follows ru, when the augment sut follows, ru shall come in place of some. That's it. Shall come in place of some. And of course, by the Sutra 1152, alontyasya, we know that means in place of the final one of some, namely the So when the augment sut follows, ru shall come in place of some, and the economics, the economy of the grammar allows us to know without any further ado that that does not mean some disappears or sa, it means that ru comes in place of the final one, the of some by alontyasya. So now let's go to a couple of, well, in fact, one example. And when we talk about this a little bit, I will give you a little taste of things to come, maybe shortly. I'm not quite sure yet. So, in terms of studying words, this is an interesting one. So let's do it the easy way, and then we will dive into it a bit deeper, or at least give you hints of the deeper part of it. So the example is some plus skarta, some plus skarta. Now, the important thing is that the s of skarta is sut. Nobody's going to tell us that. We have to know it. The s of skarta is sut. So by the sutra we just discussed, Samahasuti, the augment sut is following some. The augment sut is following some. So in place of the preceding one, ru shall come, and ru shall come, obviously, alontyasya, in place of the final one. So if we look at some plus skarta, we see that by Samahasuti, the of some becomes which we also know is not any ordinary it's ru. So we get from that sar plus skarta, sark plus skarta. Now we go to the context of enjoining ru. So this is the context of enjoining ru. That's just what we've done. We've enjoined ru in place of the of skarta. So by atra anunasika purvasya tu va, optionally, anunasika will come to the one preceding ru. The one preceding ru is the of sa. So option number one is sanskarta, sanskarta. I'm not sure how good my Anunasika is, but we'll take it for sanskarta. And option B, if we decide, no, we don't really want an Anunasika there, then 834 says, well, in that case, you have omitted the opportunity to have Anunasika, so Anuswara will come. That's it. So then we get Sanskarta, Sanskarta. And that's it. that's the easy part of it. So again, with some skata, the of some is replaced by ru by Samahasuti, today's sutra. So some skata becomes sar skata with the being ru. Then by atranunasika purvasya tuva, in the case of enjoining ru, uh, the one preceding ru will be replaced by anunasika optionally. And that's where we get sanskarta, sanskarta. And 834 is anunasikat paronuswaraha. Well, if you decided to pass on the opportunity to have anunasika, then you're bound to have anuswara. So then sanskarta, sanskarta. Well, that doesn't seem so big of a deal. But here's the thing, if we're really looking at words, and a lot of people have in the past, especially as it turns out, Batoji, it turns out that this is just the beginning of looking at some plus karta. And based on a number of sutras we've already discussed and a number that we have yet to discuss, according to Batoji, this sandhi has how many? It has 108 potential forms, 108 forms. Now, I don't know exactly why this has been explored to such a degree, and I would be surprised if all of the forms that Batoji says demonstrates appear in the literature. Nonetheless, they are considered grammatical possibilities. So we'll say something more about that another time.